Hey guys, very welcome to Unleash Yourself. And this is Deepthi, and we have Marco with us. Um, before we get started about this session and we talk about Marco, I quickly want to introduce you about this series and the platform where we are. So the series is called Unleash Yourself, wherein we focus on inner journey, inner growth, and unleashing our true potential so that we can live best of our life. That said, this platform is created by Women in Agile and Tech. What is Women in Agile and Tech? It's a forum that's created by women to support each other for our 360-degree growth. And I'll just quickly do a one-slider show. Actually, it's a couple of slides, but I'll just go through very quickly. Women in Agile and Tech started sometime in 2017, which is when I started meeting women in Agile and Tech, and we started having conversation about what are the challenges we face, how we can help each other, what is it that we all can offer to each other. So when we were doing all of this, we were already into Agile and we were already into tech. World's biggest body that supports Agile movement and all the bodies which are trying to promote Agile software development and grow with that is Agile Alliance, which was created in 2001's Agile Manifesto movement. And I feel very fortunate to have been working with them for past couple of years. And last year we took up India Agile Community Development. And so before talking about Agile Alliance, I want to talk about AgileVirgin. So what is AgileVirgin? AgileVirgin, I started more as a forum where I can learn from. Then in 2013 was the initiation. By 2015, I became an independent consultant. I more formalized AgileVirgin, which by then sort of became a community of practices across India. So I formalized it as a agility solution boutique, wherein we could not just create solution for community, but as well as for corporate. So yeah, so this time with Agile Alliance and AgileVirgin, Women in Agile and Tech creates this forum. I feel extremely honored and proud to work along these wonderful women who are from different cities and towns of India, not just from where I am. Kolkata, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Pune, Hyderabad, and NCR region. And so these officers work on various initiatives. This particular initiative is taken care by Charu here and Sumiti. And Charu was so excited about being here, but today she's unwell, she's hospitalized, and I really feel sad that she can't be here. But but yeah, she'll look at the recording and then she'll further connect. So if you quickly look at this, this is the work which we are doing with AgileVirgin, Agile Alliance, and Women in Agile and Tech. There are different members and different officers for all these different forums. And if I quickly show you, the distribution of officers in different cities of India, this is how it is. So that was all about Women in Agile and Tech, Agile Alliance, and AgileVirgin. And now let's focus on what is the conversation we are going to have today. So with Marco, who is an executive leadership coach, trainer, who is a best-selling author, who is a wonderful human being who is today with us, and we feel extremely honored that he took time for us. And today we'll talk about connection coefficient. And I hand over the virtual podium to him so that he can talk more about what this is all about. So over to you, Marco.
Thank you so much, Deepthi. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. And good evening to all of you. And I feel privileged and thankful to be here. And while listening to you, Deepthi, I also already heard the word potential. I also, like you, believe, sir, there's so much potential within each and every one of us. And if we can really, truly support each other to really elevate the potential, not only for your work or for your family, but also for society, supporting society, that creates something wonderful. And I would love to have my contribution to it by sharing my insights on the Connection Quotient. The Connection Quotient is a framework I developed based on my years of experience of working with leaders from all over the globe. I work with people from 55 different countries. And I just, whenever I work with them, I just notice that next to working from a functional perspective, when we also connect from human to human and bringing humanity to the workplace, it not only generates a lot of energy and a lot of positivism, but also business results. So by focusing also on relationships and on the connection and the connection quotient, which I'm going to talk about, is actually also supporting business and business results. So what I would like to do for the next roughly 45 minutes, I'm going to do a little bit of sharing here. I'm going to talk you through the model, and I'm going to make it also really practical, not only by some theories, but also with some personal stories. And if you do have any questions at some point, feel free to interrupt me, come in. If you have a question and you want to voice it, then please put on your video so I can see you as well while talking. Secondly, also, if you have some more questions, you can of course always use the chat function. Dipti will monitor the chat, and she will interrupt me every now and then just to talk about the questions, and I'll hopefully have some answers there for you. So women in agile and tech, you already did a short introduction, Dipti, but if you look on the right-hand side, there's also this quote by Dr. Seuss, and I just love it, because when we talk about connection, many people, when I spoke to them and asked them what's connection, they immediately think outside of themselves.
Yes.
They immediately think about being, yeah, there you go. It's true, isn't it? So we think about being in connection with someone else or with your team, your organization, but the true connection starts with the connection with yourself. And this is also why I love what you said, like, this theme of unleash yourself. The more we are willing to look inwards, do some introspection, and also are willing to not only to look for and to listen to what's happening within ourselves, but also willing to accept and look forward. So what does it mean, and what do we need to change, and then act on it? That is actually the foundation for not only being a fantastic human being, but also a fantastic partner in the world we live in. So you already introduced me, Dipti, and you saw my background. I had some tulips and windmills. Then I'm from the Netherlands. I'm Dutch. And next to being Dutch, a short introduction. So I'm also the founder and managing partner together with Jacob and Buschman, business partner of COURIUS. And COURIUS is actually a company where we're focusing on the human side of change. So we're all we do a lot of business coaching and team leadership and then leadership programs and organizational development, culture programs. But all of us, we are senior consultants with hands-on experience. And although we understand strategy and we understand also structure, we love to focus more on the human perspective. Now, a short introduction, if I were to introduce myself from the human doing piece, we're called human beings. But in my work, I encounter also a lot of people who are more human doings. They work. Then I would say I'm a managing partner. I'm an executive and team coach. I focus on the connection quotient, obviously. I've written the book about it, facilitator, etc., and so on and so on. And it's interesting when I ask some people, so who are you? Many people, they don't tell who they are, but they share what they do. So that's more the human doing part. By the way, I will show afterwards, Dipti, I will send you the slides as well. So for the people who would like to make notes, you don't need to make any notes on what's already on the slides because you get the slides afterwards. That's the human doing piece. But if I were to introduce myself more from the human being perspective, I would say I'm nearly 53. I'm the proud father of Laura, Frank, and Erin, 24, 22, and 15. I'm married. I'm married to Cindy. I enjoy dancing. I really love music. I love to do meditation as well in the mornings, and nowadays I also do meditation in the evenings. I have a spiritual interest. I work with a spiritual guide, so that's part more also about who I am. So you get a sense of what I do, but also a little bit of a sense of who I am. And there's more to share, of course, about my values. For instance, compassion is one of my primary drivers, so it's truly important to me. Clients, we work with large clients with Capgemini, AgileVirgin, AkzoNobel, Shell, but we also work with many smaller companies. They're still quite ambitious and independent consultants. But for me, whenever we say yes to a client, we always say yes because we also believe in them, that they are willing to take in, not only just say, here's some money and thank you for the knowledge, but they actually do apply it as well. And that's one of the commitments I've made to myself. I want to bring quality. I want to support with my work humanity. And if I don't feel that is actually something that I can do, then I rather say no to my clients instead of saying yes just for the money. And that's a personal choice, of course. Now, the question, when we start talking about connection and connection quotient, then the question is, what's connection? So over the last years, I've spoken to so many people, and I always raise the question, so what's connection? And there's so many answers. Here's the first answer, and this is one of my answers of myself. I would say, I would debate, connection is your birthright. You're born out of a connection of two persons. And then you're being raised. That's also, there's connection all over. So right from the start, we come from connection. So it's our birthright to feel connection, to be in connection. Although, of course, I see in the world that not everyone gets the warm place that they deserve. But next to the birthright, it's also a necessity. Of course, in the past, when we were, being in a group, being connected to a group, also raised the level of survival for us all. But it's also quite interesting that research, and Australian research really shows that people at a high age who are still strongly connected to people, they actually live longer. So also the connection you and I have, and if we meet people, the physical and the emotional connection actually has also something to do with how we feel, how we express ourselves, but also how long we live, and the whole physicality of being human. Some other questions, some other answers that I got from leaders I spoke to, they said, like, connection, part of connection, there's what's underneath, it's about giving and receiving trust. And I say, yes, that's absolutely true. And I'm going to talk slightly more about Stephen M.R. Covey and David Meister. They did a lot of research around trust. And I think it's part of connection, but it's not the essence of connection. I think it's an element of connection. And it's the same with this one. There's really interesting. Google does a lot of research within their own teams. And what stands out from the best performing teams if you compare them to the regular teams? And what they found in the research is not like about how smart the people are. If you have a group of really smart people, it doesn't necessarily mean you've got the best performing team. But what they found, like what's underneath best performing teams, they create a space of where it's psychological safe to be in, where you can openly discuss, openly be who you are, raise questions. If you make mistakes, that's absolutely fine. So again, what's connection? Yes, of course, it does have relationship with psychologically safe spaces, but it's not the essence. I think again, it's another element. Or being and feeling supported. And if you look at the research by Gallup, it's an American institute. It's really, they've done research on leadership for, I think, the last 35 years or so. And what their research shows is like people, they sign up for a company because they believe in the company, they believe in the products, they believe in what the company stands for, their vision, the mission, their why, the deeper why as well. But what their research shows that although you are really thrilled to become part of the company, when people leave, there's also a strong relationship that they leave because of their managers. So they feel less connected to the managers. So again, it's something to remind for each and every one of us. Like you and I, the way we treat people around us has a high impact, not only how they feel, but also talking about retention. It's tremendously important. So again, I think it's part of what connection is, but it's not the essence, it's not the definition. Or what about this one? Experience empathy. We're all smart, we got fantastic brains, a lot of IQ, but actually Daniel Goleman talks about EQ. By the way, many people think that he invented the thing EQ, but it's something that was already existed in the year 60s of the last century. But what he did a meta study on emotional quotients. And through that meta study, he showed a lot about the importance of EQ, and I'll come back to it. And therefore, EQ is really highly correlated with Daniel Goleman, but it's, he didn't invent it, but he was the one who put it on the map. Further, it creates the foundation for results. So like right now, Diti, And we talked in Charu, we talked and discussed and said, yes, I want to support the organization. So we are connected. And by being connected, we also create this result where we have this webinar where I can share my insights with you guys, and where we can discuss and learn from each other. So connection is a foundation for results. And I would say, and so on, and so on, and so on. And if I would ask you, probably you have also your definitions of connections, or the element, the themes that are important. So while I was discussing and having the conversations with the leaders, at some point I raised the question to myself: do we need to define connection? Because it's great if we can, but the downside, if you define, you exclude so many things as well. And my conclusion is no, we don't need to. Because you and I, we're human. We know when we're connected, and we certainly know when we're not connected. And what I always say is connection is a bit like breathing. It's, you do it all day, although you don't notice it. You start noticing it when the connection is not there anymore. It's the same with breathing. Suddenly, when the oxygen is less, you start noticing something in your body that then you realize, breath and oxygen is important. And it's the same with connection. When it's there with a good group of friends, you don't talk about the connection, it's just there. But when there's a little bit of conflict, or where you get disconnected, then's when you start noticing, hey, I'm missing the connection. Now, here's also what I really found a hard nut to crack. If connection is everywhere, it's like, it's your birthright, it's like breathing, it's happening all the time. And if you want to improve the connection and you want to strengthen your connection, then how to do it? How to develop your CQ? And in order to get to the answer, I made a framework which has a slightly different perspective on connection. So here's the foundation. Again, what I said at the start, rather than immediately thinking outside yourself, being connected to someone else or your team organization, the true starting point of connection is being in connection with yourself. And from there, the second layer is being in connection with the other person as the first representative of the outside world. And from there, with your team, your organization, and your world. And as you can see, if you look thoroughly, you could see this as a shelf, and being in connection with yourself is actually the pearl inside the shelf. And that's how I perceive, why the starting point is really us, I, myself. But this is just a starting point of the framework. And here's something else I observed while working with my clients all over. I also noticed that, while we look at teams as organizations, as functions, I think there are always two lenses that we should consider. The first lens is, I would say, more the functional lens. Remember when I introduced myself from the human doing piece. That's more the functional. And the foundation here is like every organization, every team, every function exists to produce results. And if you want to have some results and you want to create business impact, you need to have your rationality and use your brain and your logic in order to have what's your vision, your strategy. What are the year plans, your task roles, responsibilities, your decision-making processes, and so on, and so on, and so on. So you need to have the functionality. And if you look through that lens, then you could also say, like, we could look at people and the leader or the employees from a role, as a role. That's the functional perspective. But next to that, if you look at teams, organizations, and functions, it exists out of human beings like you and me. We're now with a group, and we're all humans. And every organization, team, and function exists out of humans. So then you suddenly also start thinking about the relational side and about the emotional and interpersonal dimension. And then we start talking about trust, of course, and respect and psychological safety, inclusiveness, and so on. Then the second lens is not only the leader and the employee as a role, as a function, but also the leader employee as a person. Now, and if you add that to the model, then you actually get the foundational model of the connection quotient. So it's not only about being in connection with yourself or the other team, function, the organization, or the rest of the world, but you have two lenses. So you can shift between the lens either from the functional perspective, the leader as a role, the employee as a role, or from a more personal perspective, the human to human connections. Now, where does this lead us to? So what's the practicality? How can you start applying it? I'm going to share you and give you some examples, you know, and those are a couple of examples that are also described in the book. And of course, since we're just doing like 45 to 50 minutes of my presentation, I had to make some choices. And I hope that you'll find them interesting as well. So if you start looking in connection with yourself and you start applying the two lenses, then you can actually raise the question yourself, am I more the human doing, like working from my head with hands attached to it in order to get results and output? Or am I also allowing myself to feel, to sense, to listen to my heart, to my gut, to my intuition? And then suddenly you don't only talk about being successful, that again is quite functional, being successful, but great if you're successful, but are you also fulfilled? Which is a slightly different question. So, and I'll just share you in a minute my personal story. At some point in my life, I was quite successful, but within myself, I noticed I wasn't fulfilled. I was empty, I was tired, I was really like a bit stressed out. And therefore, also, you could also debate, like, you know, being from a functional perspective, I'm quite resolute and direct and, you know, you make it happen. But are you also willing and daring to be vulnerable? And again, what I see sometimes in leaders, they're quite strong. But when it gets to emotions and it gets to becoming vulnerable, this is why they shy away. Now, if I were to give you the examples into a personal story, and again, you see the doing in the being, the function in the person. If I reflect back on my life, what I noticed in the first roughly 35 years, I lived my life primarily from do, have, be. And what it means, like, you know, my parents were divorced when I was quite young. And I made a choice there to block my emotions. And I said to myself, I'm going to be strong. I'm a boy, boys don't cry. And I'm going to, you know, make sure that I get the results. So I attended the military academy and I taught myself, you know, I'm going to be a general one day. So what I did a lot. I worked hard. I studied hard. I took a lot of responsibilities. I said yes all the time. Next to my work, again, part of doing, I also studied business administration, business informatics too, next to it. So I was doing a lot because I felt, and I noticed, if I do that, I have a fantastic career. At the age of 29, I was ranked major. So that was quite young. So I have a fantastic career. I have lots of money. I have beautiful holidays. You know, I have a nice car, a nice house, all the stuff that I want to have. And therefore, I thought myself, therefore, I'd be happy, I'd be successful. You know, I'll be someone to be recognized. So I primarily lived for external recognition. From by doing a lot, I have something, and therefore I'll be someone. And what I noticed, I was quite successful with it. But around the age of 30, 35, I noticed my own marriage wasn't working that well. I worked long hours. I hardly saw my kids. Inside, I was exhausted. I wasn't happy. So I started to work with my own coaches and did some deep development work. And it was quite interesting what they asked. They asked you, so who are you? And I told them what I did. They said, no. That's what you do. Who are you? And I found that really hard to answer. But what they basically did, they flipped it around. They asked, who are you and who do you want to be? So nowadays, I understand who I am. And I know, for instance, that also for me, what's important in the being side is also to live from and to come from compassion. I believe in a connected world, you know, and for me, contributing to a connected world is important. What I want to have is I want to leave behind a legacy. I want to leave behind the world slightly better than I actually got it from, you know, and for me, it's also, you know, I live right now, but there's also my children, my grandchildren, and many more generations. So what I want to have is also something where I contributed to a society which is really positive. So the question came also at some point, what did I need to do? And I noticed next to being in the military, I've been a commissioned officer, and then I also worked with Capgemini for 8.5 years. At some point, what I needed to do, I needed to resign. And I said, because what I understand more and more, I want to work with the full potential individually as a coach, but also with teams and organizations, and see how I can contribute, how people can actually look inwards, see their potential and use it for the best. So again, by flipping it around, I started to understand who I am. And also nowadays, if you look, it's now much more balanced. Of course, I'm still have my moments where I come from do, have, be, and I work hard and I really enjoy it. But nowadays I can say I'm on the one hand successful, but I'm certainly fulfilled. And that's energy that gives me a foundation to be with my family, to also work with my clients, but also to say yes on this Saturday evening, to being here with you guys, just to support and to unleash yourself, the full potential, because that's what I believe in. And therefore I made that choice. And again, it's interesting, as you notice, being in relationship with yourself, and also talking in the first layer in connection with the other. Of course, we start talking by trusting. Do I trust you? Do you trust me? But what I know, it all starts by self-trust. So first, again, you need to trust yourself. And it's quite interesting if you look at the work of Stephen M.R. Covey. By the way, that's the son of Stephen Covey, who has written The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And just to confuse us probably, he named one of his sons also Stephen. Therefore, it's Stephen M.R. Covey who has written the book, The Speed of Trust. But what he shows in the core of trust, there are 4 core elements. And 2 of the elements are more functional, more rational. So if you want to build up trust, the fastest way to build up trust is show that you have the competences and show that you create results. So also, being an author, having my book, published, also working with my clients, shows you at least I have some competences and some results that helps in building the trust. But what he also shows in his book, if you want to deepen the trust, then it's much more about who you are as a person. It's much more about character. What is your intention? Do you come from a pure intention and true intention? And do you act with integrity? So again, what he shows is like the rationality is important. Yes, it is. It starts the foundation. It starts the trust with the other person, but also the trust with yourself. If you don't trust yourself enough, then reflect on what you already did and what you already achieved and all the competencies you possess. It helps you to start trusting yourself, but also think about who you are and how you stand. And just ask one of your friends, why are you my friend? They have some reason why they want to spend time with you. And that's not probably only because of results, but also for the person you are, your intention and integrity. So again, you see, it's about both elements, and it starts all by being in connection with yourself. So Deepti, before actually I want to continue, let's create a little bit of pause here and see if there's any questions, either via the chat or in person. Let's see if someone would like to reflect and say something.
What options do you want to put in poll? I know we could have done this for Zoom, but I think I forgot to enable. So I can use Fun Retro, I can use Mentimeter. What options do you want to put in poll?
So the line was breaking up every now and then, DT, so the line's not constant here.
Oh, I'm saying what options do you want to put in poll?
Oh, it's more like, if people would like to raise some questions here, that's fine. And if not, then I'll just continue and share some more insights.
Okay, let me just put the question.
Yeah. I'm just curious for some, some reflections, first thoughts from people.
Hey, Marco, Manish here.
Hello, Manish.
Right.
And
So,
Manish, would it be okay if you would switch on your video so I can see you?
Yeah, I'm just doing it.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Is it okay if people use comment section, if at all the poll option is not ready? Actually, they can go ahead and ask questions instead.
Yeah, sure. So Manish, yes.
Yeah. So Marco, would like to refer the one of the earlier slide where you were talking about the connections, and the first one of that thing is connection with the self. So I believe that's the most important thing, and where I believe at least myself, I'm looking for it. So what are your thoughts on that? To first connect with self so that you can better connect with the others and outer world. What's your thought on that?
Well, Manish, what I notice sometimes we're so occupied in doing, we're running, we're doing, all the work, the tasks, and we also have responsibility for our families, maybe for community as well. So if you really want to connect with yourself, it's also about creating some off time where you can just sit down, can have a walk with yourself. This is also why I'm a big advocate of really some quiet time and meditation time as well, just to be, because in the quiet time when you're really silent down, this is also when you start noticing what's happening within yourself. What's happening in your physical body, what's happening in your mind, what are your thoughts, what are the questions in your mind. So I think the most important is that we need to create a little bit of me time next to all the other responsibilities we have.
Okay, thanks for that.
Okay. You're welcome. So Neeraj, I see I can hear your voice, and suddenly your picture is here. Is there also a question?
Oh, sorry, I thought I was on mute. I apologize.
No problem, no problem.
But now that I am speaking, first of all, Marco, I'm actually attending a session from Dubai. I don't know if you knew that, but so that's one. But secondly, this is a great perspective about connections. I never had that perception. So definitely, it's, that's one reason why you're in a question, because people are spellbounded, trying to get connection at so many different perspectives.
Yeah, yes.
So forward to the rest of your, session. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that support, and let's continue. And I'll bring you in somewhere at some point. Just you don't need to say anything, but you just did something beautiful to me, and I'll share the importance of it later. Okay.
Okay. Looking forward to that. Thanks.
Good. Thank you. So let's continue with the journey then. So if we go to the second layer, being in connection with the other person, and again, the other person is the first representative of the outside world. Then again, when we connect to each other, how do we connect? Do we only talk about goals? Again, that's more the functional, like what are the goals? What are your task roles, responsibilities, your KPIs, and so on? Or do we also talk about our relationship? How do we work together? What is it that you need from me? What sort of support? Not only for the business, but maybe also for you. For instance, also with COVID nowadays, how do you balance also not only working at home, but also maybe if you have young kids, how do you homeschool them? And how do you balance the functionality, the work, as well as your family life? So is it okay to talk about these kind of conversations as well, one-on-one? And Neeraj, this is also where I would like to bring you in. There's also where, there's a difference between giving a compliment and an acknowledgement. And a compliment is much more a functional thing where you say, thank you so much for being on time. Or Rajit, what you just said to me is like, you love the concept and you're looking forward to, what else is there and the importance of the connection. So that is like a compliment to me. At the same time, Deepti, is that something you want to raise? Yeah.
Because you made me think, and I just quickly wanted to share that when I did not have a child, everything was awesome, and I loved competing because that had been told, you have to be number one, and I managed to be number one, and I enjoyed being number one. Not that there was any pressure or anything. I enjoyed that, right? I always also thought. So every school has a different culture. There are a few schools which have top ranking, and I don't know how they are now. But when we used to go, and that was, what we used to hear. I don't want to name them. And so I used to think my son, whatever, I have a daughter or a son, they will go there. And, those schools, they'll compete and they'll be the, toppers and all of that, which is what I used to think because that's what I had been doing all my life. But when I had my child, I was so unhappy because I could not be there with him. And so then I thought, what do working women do? I have no idea. How do they leave their kids such small, like, babies who are crying when you are leaving? And that is when I also started realizing, a lot of things started falling apart for me, Marco. I was no longer happy. And all I knew that something is wrong. Now everyone would tell that, you are satisfied because people get depressed as soon as they have everything in life. So I have a good family, I have kid, I have good job, but I'm so unhappy. And I kept on exploring. So since 2012 is when I felt, no, I need to find out a way. I went to self-help programs. I read a lot of books. And so today here I am, and Connection Quotient is my thing basically. And so yes, you just made me recall, and so I'm just sharing, not to disturb you. Thank you. Yeah.
No. Thank you for it's a fantastic story. And this again, it shows like it's not only about being successful, but also being fulfilled. And you found something that fulfills you. And I think that's more the energy, and this is what we should pursue.
Yeah.
And if I may build on you, so I was just explaining the compliment is much more the functional. So I could say, thank you for this beautiful story. It's a personal story. So that's the compliment. But if I were to acknowledge you, that is much more about who you are as a person and your qualities. I could say, thank you for sharing. You are courageous. You are honest. You are sincere. You are emotional. So these are some of the qualities that I see in you. And again, that is also in the connection quotient. That is much more, the acknowledgement is much more about the person, the relational side. So I do not only see you for what you do, and it's fantastic what you created, but also for who you are as a person. And again, do you see? And so I'm just curious, since you were already talking, what do you notice? What's the impact of the acknowledgements here as well?
So, of course, when someone acknowledges what you're trying to express, the immediate feeling is you are understood, not just heard. Heard is okay, but understood is what is relief, that a person gets. As I was telling you, when I had my child, I was like, oh my God, I can't send him to for cutthroat competition. No, I just want him to flourish. I want him to find what makes him happy. I don't want him to get over. That just changed. That transformed me actually, not just change. And so answering your question, that acknowledgement on redirection, so when first time I found out when someone said, I know what you're going through and I understand. Oh, I cried. And so acknowledgement actually opens up something for you. Probably you can comment better, but yeah.
Fantastic. And again, it shows a compliment is primarily going to the head, and then it feels great as well. But the acknowledgement is mostly going to the heart. I see you for who you are. And again, this is what people want. People want to be seen. People want to be connected. And this is also why it's interesting, if you're talking to someone, and again, from the functional perspective, you could raise the question, what is your ambition? And if I were to ask someone what's your ambition, they come up most of the time more with a functional answer. These are the functions, that's next steps. I want to take these courses and so on. Whereas if you ask someone, what's your dream? So you rename ambition to dream, which is much more relational, then suddenly you get stories much more open about their lives as well, what they want in life. So again, and what I believe is also at the workplace, we should not only ask what's your ambition, but also what's your dream. That will open up some more insights. So, and again, in connection with the other person, we need to understand that we all have different perspectives on reality. And I always say everyone is right, but partially. So for right now, what you notice, if you look at it, this is like the number 3. But just think about, you would put this on the table, and the person sitting in front of it, would say, like, I look at the object and he says, this is what he sees. And he says, it's a 3. But the person on the left-hand side would see this. And this person would say, no, it's not a 3, it's the letter M. Or the person on top would say, no, both of you are wrong. It's the letter E. And the person on the right said, no, everyone's wrong. It's the W. So here again, it shows like it's so interesting that we can all observe the same reality, yet have different perspectives on reality. And that's not only for the physical, but also based on our training, based on how we are raised in our community through our parents, based on experience and so on and so on. We see different perspectives, and mentally we see different perspectives again. So this is also why I say in interactions, rather than go to a judgment, stay open and curious, raise your questions, listen to understand, rather than listening to reply or fix. Look for the truth, ask like, so you see a W, tell me, help me out. So again, this is like a mindset we need to come from. I also noticed someone raised his hand or her hand. I'm not sure who it was. I assume that's like a question. No question? Okay. So I really also, and again, this, since this is just 1 hour, There's so much more I would love to share. You can read it in the book, but for now, I just have to summarize here. Again, based also on our personality types, you know, the work of Carl Jung, Swiss psychiatrist, well-known, MBTI, DISC, insights discovery, all these tools are based on his work. And again, it shows you like extraversion or introversion. People will actually look and also have different needs based on their preferences. So you can just see a couple of them. And again, you get the slides so you can read them after. If someone's quite introverted and a thinker, they probably want some more detail. So they raise questions to understand. And they don't question all the time because they want to confuse the process. They just need more details. Or someone who's quite extroverted and a feeler, they want to be involved. Or someone who's extroverted and more of a thinker, they want action. So again, the combinations of those different personality traits also makes that we need to act differently, we think differently. And again, from the connection quotient, it means that you and I, we need to be flexible. We need to be willing to adapt our styles. My work in communication style doesn't necessarily mean that's also the work and communication style of the other person. So we need to look and to check for each and every one of us. And I love therefore this statement where Maya just said, like, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And again, I believe that's a choice. And the choice comes not only for aligning and connecting with the other person functionally, but also relationally. So here are a couple of topics as well. And again, what you see here are not all the topics. There are just a couple of examples. You know, when coming from the functional side, of course, you know, talking about teams and organizations, we need to think about the structure and how to align, you know, who's got which responsibilities. But let's also talk about culture, the emotional infrastructure, not only a physical infrastructure, but there's also the emotional infrastructure. Are you coming from a just do it perspective? I'm not meaning Nike. I like the phrase, but sometimes people work hard and they just keep pushing and doing it. But let's also talk about ethics, and not only about profit, but also about happiness. And again, by switching your glasses, by switching the perspective, you start thinking about new ways of looking at the organizations. So this is also why and this is a really practical tool. What I notice when people start working together, either one-on-one or in teams, they work from assumptions, but understand that the number one challenge, either you do it in person or even also working virtually and remote, you know, we need to stay productive and we need to stay connected. We need to understand, and again, like I said earlier, each and everyone have different preferences. So it's impossible to create one size fits all strategies. Therefore, we have to make choices. And I always say, like, what I notice, many people, when they start interacting, they work from implicit expectations. And then we expect something from the other and we assume they understand and they do something, which they don't. And then we go like, we get bugged like, oh, why don't you do it? Therefore, we have to talk about how do we want to work? How do we want to align? What's being expected? When I say I want to be respected, you want to be respected as well. But what does it mean? Your respect might be different from my respect. So again, this is why I'm a strong advocate. Also, next to talking business, also talk relations, and then design something, which I would say, and this sounds quite functional, a sort of team contract, an aligned designed alliance. And it also means that you and I, we also need to check for what is our mindsets. Are we coming from what Carol Dweck calls a fixed mindset, where we say like, you know, this is the way I'm born, this is the way I'm raised, and therefore I can't change anymore. You know, if I make mistakes, then, oh, bummer, I've made a mistake. If I'm failing, I'm a failure. You're not. I believe also in a growth mindset, that we also should actually bring in our teams and in our organizations a growth mindset where it's absolutely okay to give feedback, where you can learn from mistakes, where we openly say, try out. And if you fail, you've just failed, you learn from something. Of course, if you fail for the fourth or the fifth time with the same mistake, we might have a different conversation, obviously. But the growth mindset, I think, again, is crucial. It's so crucial as if you want to really improve our connection quotients, the CQ. So finally, if you look at the world, and again from a functional perspective, the world is where you find your clients, your employees. You know, are you talking about a consumption economy where the world is just your foundation for raw materials, or with a more personal perspective, they will suddenly think also about what's the society, what's the impact of COVID. You know, of course, I see businesses who say like, oh gosh, you know, my clients, I don't have clients and no work anymore. So they think about the functional perspective and make choices, you know, on how to do business differently. At the same time, I also see business who say like, there's a big impact on society. What can we do in order to help society here? This is also what we do as COURIUS. You know, when it also hits us here in the Netherlands, we also said, you know, we offer our services for free to those in need, you know, because there's a lot of stress also in the system. So if people need some support, you know, and even if there's something involved that actually needs money as well, we paid for you. So again, that is like a choice, because we also believe, again, that doing business is just also about creating a connected society. We talk about connected leadership, then we also have to put our act into it. It's also what I like about the foundation that you founded. It's not only in the business, but it's really sincerely to talk and to support each other. And again, that's like coming from a person, not just a functional perspective. So here's something that I also would like you to understand, and this is nearly the final piece of my presentation, and I'll hand over for the Q&A. There's also something odd going on. Up till now, I talked about, you know, functional and relational are similar, you know, but equally important, and it's true. Why? Because, you know, if you and I would only connect more on a functional perspective. So for instance, I'm your manager and I only ask you each day, like, how many meetings did you have and what's the revenue, you know, where are you on budget, where are, you know, with your KPIs, you know, we don't talk about family at all, only functional. I think most of the people will at some point say, you know what, find someone else. I'm not interested in this relationship anymore. I don't feel connected. Remember, Gallup says people leave managers, not the organization. You know, if you act like this as a manager, watch out for it. People will leave. On the other hand, if we only would have like really nice sessions, you know, where we talk about life and our kids and all the other stuff, but we don't succeed, we don't get any results at all. Probably I get fired, you might do as well. But for most people, no results at all is not that interesting. So we need to have both. We need to have the business impact. We need to have the connection, the relational side as well. Yet at the same time, so this is why they are equal, I also say they're not equal. And here's a little exercise. I'm going to ask you to use the chat box, each and every one of you. So here's a short exercise. If you think back of the best team you've been part of, and as a team, you might think about a sports team. You might be your current work your team. It might be a previous work team. It might even be your family. I don't care, whatever your definition is. A group of people working together towards something that they have in common. But if you think about the best team that you've been part of, what are the attributes? What are the elements that created this best team experience? Because if we understand what's the difference between those teams and the average teams you've been part of, then we can start working on it. So if I may invite all of you, just use the chat box and write down 2 or 3 of those attributes. What are the things that were standing out in the best teams that you've been part of? So what made these teams so exquisite? So if you can use the chat box, and Deepti, may I ask you just to read what people will write down here so I can listen to it? Fantastic, thank you. So, and again, there's no right or wrong. So just write some of the attributes of best teams that you've been part of. What are the characteristics? Do we already have some answers, DT? Or are people still in the thinking mode?
No, we have answers. So I was just thinking let them get over, but no, let's get started. So communication, coordination, honesty, trust, a lot of trust, um, non-judgment, team member, honesty, then common likings, inner calling, that's me, energy, openness, respect, trust, transparency, same goes. Ease of
Yeah,
communication, openness, which is like psychological safety, I guess. Respect
fantastic.
everyone, common interest, trust, equality, unbiased leader, broad mind, open culture, respect for ideas, show your care,
Fantastic.
dedication,
Yeah.
respect, collaboration, passion, openness combined with respect, trust,
Fantastic.
connectivity, like
Fantastic.
empathy, understanding of
I'm
emotions of
going to
different
stop you. I'm going to pause you here. It's absolutely fine. It's
I
absolutely
can
it's
go
absolutely.
on, yeah.
I know we
And I
can.
also had respect, Marco. In addition to
Yeah,
that,
sure.
respect was as well. So,
Yeah, respect is tremendous important as well, Neeraj. And you know, this is the interesting piece. If you were to take all those words you found in the chat box, and you had to say either these words are more functional aspects or more relational aspects. So you have to define all the words. Either it's functional or more relational. What I see, and I've raised this question to thousands and thousands of people globally. Each time when I wrote them down, roughly 1/3 of the answers are more functional aspects, yet 2/3 are relational aspects. So this led me to believe that if we really invest in the relation, if we really invest in the interpersonal energy, more in the relational, so the non-functional elements, that is what I see and what I believe to be true. That is the multiplier ultimately for the business. So again, just, you know, afterwards, use all the words in the chat and just either say it's a functional or relational element. You will see that at least 2/3 are more relational. And it's interesting also, if you look at the research by Daniel Goleman, what he actually found out as well, he says in each role, you know, although we're quite functional trained, if you look at like all the work that needs to happen and the coordination and the interactions, he says like 1/3 of the things that need to happen, 1/3 is more IQ related and 2/3 is EQ related. So again, it shows like the importance of EQ, the importance of also the relational, the personal interactions. And he even says, he even shows in his research that for leadership positions, it's even 15% is IQ related work and 85% is EQ related work. So this also led me to believe that if you look at my model, where I first had the line halfway, at the end of the book, I also show like, I believe that actually it should be more like this. And again, the paradox is you have to have both. So because if you don't have the functional in place, you will mess up the organization, the team will not run. So that's the paradox. It needs to be in place. But I believe if you and I, if we truly invest also in the more interpersonal, the relational elements and aspects, this is where we really elevate the relationship within ourselves, but also with the other, your team, organization, your clients, and that leads to bigger business impact. So in short, my summary, the connection quotient, I believe there's no need for a definition. So even if you go into the book and you would read the book itself, you will not find the definition of the connection and the connection quotient, because everyone knows, they feel when it's in place, and certainly when it's not in place. And you and I, we desire it. Also, it starts by connecting to yourself, then to the other, followed by your team, your organization, and the world, and maybe even the universe. I'll leave that open to whatever your thoughts are. Remember, we need to remember, we are primarily a person, a human being, and we have a function. That's the order. And the paradox is, you as a leader, as an employee, we are the function and the person, they are equal, and yet they are not. So if you really want to develop your CQ, it starts by understanding that you need to raise questions at all levels, from self to the world, both from the functional and the relational perspective. But not only about the balance, but if we start raising questions on how do we do it, we also need to be willing to listen to our own answers, to understand what those answers mean. And finally, then we have to act on it. And this is what I would like to show you guys. and then I'm really open for the Q&A. I believe this concept, you can logically understand it. And it's something that most people say, yeah, I get it, and it's important. Yet, acting on it, that is like a statement, and that's a mindset. And I believe that if we come from a mindset, then we can change the world, not only for ourselves or our communities, for our families, but also a bigger impact. And I think nowadays the world's need it. And here's a short video that I would love to show you, which shows like why sometimes switching your perspective, a completely new outcome is actually possible.
I am part of a lost generation, and I refuse to believe that I can change the world. I realize this may be a shock, but happiness comes from within is a lie, and money will make me happy. So in 30 years, I will tell my children they are not the most important thing in my life. My employer will know that I have my priorities straight because work is more important than family. I tell you this, once upon a time, families stayed together. But this will not be true in my era. This is a quick fix society. Experts tell me 30 years from now, I will be celebrating the 10th anniversary of my divorce. I do not concede that I will live in a country of my own making. In the future, environmental destruction will be the norm. No longer can it be said that my peers and I care about this earth. It will be evident that my generation is apathetic and lethargic. It is foolish to presume that there is hope. And all of this will come true unless we choose to reverse it. There is hope. It is foolish to presume that my generation is apathetic and lethargic. It will be evident that my peers and I care about this earth. No longer can it be said that environmental destruction will be the norm. In the future, I will live in a country of my own making. I do not concede that 30 years from now, I will be celebrating the 10th anniversary of my divorce. Experts tell me this is a quick fix society, but this will not be true in my era. Families stayed together once upon a time. I tell you this, family is more important than work. I have my priorities straight because my employer will know that they are not the most important thing in my life. So in 30 years, I will tell my children, money will make me happy is a lie, and true happiness comes from within. I realize this may be a shock, but I can change the world, and I refuse to believe that I am part of a lost generation.
So again, I really believe like you and I, we can make a difference. It starts by understanding the concepts. It starts by taking responsibility for our own behaviors. It starts by not judging someone for their behavior, but judging them for their intention and judging ourselves on our behavior. That again is a mental shift, and it has a huge, huge impact. So thank you so much. And I understand it's late for you guys. So for staying up late and also spending some time for watching this webinar and taking some insights from me to you. I hope I could actually serve you here. And if you have any questions, feel free, and also always feel free to reach out. If you have any questions afterwards, reach out on LinkedIn and just, ask any questions. If I can answer that, I'll be more than happy. And also, if you would like to have the book and read more on the Connection Quotient, you can go to Amazon.India, Amazon.in. You can order your own copy, either as a physical book or an electronic version. So this is what I wanted to share, and I would like to open the floor for any questions.
And Marco, in the meantime, I would ask you to look at the comments. They are for you.
Okay.
This is Lakshmikant here.
Hello.
This is Lakshmikant. Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you, Lakshmikant. Yeah.
Yeah. So Marco, I want to summarize my understanding. This was really a powerful session that you have taken up, and my mind is also opening up. So I also I've seen this something similar, but what now I understand is much more powerful, much more clear in terms of connection. So what we are saying is that the context in which I appear to other, and that's how other people will hear me. I'll be heard by them. So if I were to consider different areas of my life, for example, my school friends or my office or my family, I'm being heard over there, and that's what makes me feel I'm connected or I'm not connected to them. Okay. In the same way, now how I have been with them, and I have to change that context if I want to really be connected with them, and what actually matters to them and what matters to me. If I take care of their matters, I'll be heard more.
Yeah. Well,
and that's where we improve our connection. That helps in the teams also. So this connection quotient is which will keep on improving. The more I care for them, the more connection will happen, right?
Yes, and the end is here. Yes, if you come from a sincere interest and you're really willing to serve them, it will improve the connection. At the same time, what I also am a strong advocate is also raise questions. Because sometimes out of a pure intention, we do something which we feel like this is really helpful for them. And this is something they need, which actually might be counterproductive. But from our perspective, it might be a good thing to do. So also make sure that you regularly check with the other person. So what's your need? What is your understanding? So rather than working from assumptions, make it explicit. And I think, again, raising these kind of questions, you know, sometimes we totally forget it. So that would be my add to you. Also make sure that you check and raise questions with them.
Sure, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or any
Mark.
remarks? Yeah.
Yeah, that was a wonderful video you shared. It went from top to bottom and bottom to top.
Thank you.
Why, my question is, why the leadership doesn't have so much emotional quotient in an organization?
Yeah. Well, just know that your question has already a perception in it, that they don't have it. They might have it, but they might not use it for some reasons. So one of the things that I observe is also we're in a world where there's a high focus on money, high focus on being successful. There are also political games going on. There are power games going on. And if you're part of that system, you know, sometimes the defense is to become quite functional and to become aggressive or to become quite rational in order to protect yourself. So again, what I notice in my work as an executive coach, and I work with so many people all around the globe, that in essence, they have EQ, yet they're all not always willing and daring to use it. Because what they also come from is that if I'm vulnerable, you know, they might actually come and someone else might misuse it against me. So there's also something that they need to start looking for, the power of vulnerability, and also saying yes and accepting that if someone else has a judgment, if you go down that path, that it's okay. But it also takes, again, a strong mind and a mind shift and a growth mindset in order to say yes to it. So where I'm with you and where I'm certainly also not with you, I think that many people have EQ, but the question is, are they willing to use it? And again, if you want to go there, then you have to start talking to them. Does that answer your question, Madhu, or your statements?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Marco, I had just one question. And
Yeah, sure.
what is the best way to, improve EQ in a human or around, or if you are in a team, how to, motivate people or how to develop EQ amongst people? So
Yeah.
is there something that a leader can do?
Yeah. So first, if you want to develop it yourself, it's really about taking some time to check in with yourself and to be honest with yourself. Also ask honest feedback, and also, are you willing to listen to the feedback? So even if people have feedback on you, which you have a totally different perspective on, can you still say, yes, thank you so much for your perspective, and find the truth in it? And therefore also I'm a strong advocate of meditation or some quiet time every now and then, rather than running constantly. You know, take some time and create some time to reflect on yourself. Now, if you want to also start improving the EQ of the people around you, you know, it's not working going say you have to improve your EQ. But I truly believe in role modeling. As I'm looking at your picture, I see probably it's your daughter, Deepashri, I'm not sure. But you know, if you look at how children learn by observation. They listen, they also observe a lot. And if you as a leader also start acting from your EQ and showing the interest, and if you role model it, the people around you will not only listen and hear it and feel it, but they also see it. And that by itself is an act of growth. So it starts by really, are you willing to be a role model, and are you willing to take a stand for it? also what I said, like the team contract. And again, the team contract, I keep coming back. It's a simple tool. It's really powerful, but not that many people do it. Are you also willing to talk with your team members about the concept of how well are we connected? Remember the best team exercise that we did in this webinar. You can do the same exercise with your own team. Ask them to think about what are the elements of the best team that you've been part of. And then you write them down, and then you show them like which are the functional, which are the relational. And then your team members will actually also see that they created a list where 2/3 of the elements are more relational, more the interpersonal elements. And then you have a beautiful platform to start talking about the essence and the importance of connections. And if we were to give it a number right now, how well connected do we feel? So it takes courage, and it takes power, and it takes role modeling of you to actually start opening up this conversation. Because ultimately, EQ is not something you learn by reading a book. You know, you can read my book, and in my book, you find also many exercises, you find background information, and so on and so on. But ultimately, you grow your EQ by doing, by putting it into action, and by also inviting your team members to put it in action and themselves. I hope, again, this answers your question as well.
Thank you very much. It was perfectly answered. And I think this also will help in developing or improving the culture of the team. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Hi, Marco.
Hello, Raki.
Raki, yeah. First of all, I would like to thank you for an excellent session. Like you just talked about meditation and, you know, introspection and looking within yourself, and, you know, past couple of years have been like really, you can say I was trying to move on that path. And when I actually started traveling on that path of meditation and self introspection, that is when I really realized that there's a difference between success and being fulfilled, being satisfied. So at times you have success, you are earning money, you are popular, you're respected, but then there's this sense of fulfillment and, you know, that satisfaction by the end of the day, that was not there. But it, you know, meditation and this thing has really helped in it. So my question for you is, from your the slides, I've just noted down this thing that listen to understand instead of reply and fix.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I want to know here is that even you know, when we say try to fix, so is there a line which we should draw while we are dealing with people in a professional organization, where we listen to them, we understand their problems, we don't give them a reply, we don't, you know, whether we should try to fix it or not. If we do try to help them, should we draw a line somewhere? So this is something I want to know from you.
So, you know, there is no one size fits all, but what is important in this is that you are conscious of what you are doing. So for instance, if there's, you know, if we were together in a house and there's suddenly a fire, you know, then probably raising questions, you know, and so what do you think, what's your advice? That's not the best solution. Then you should act and say, go out of the door right now, call upon the neighbors, you know, get the firemen in, etc. So being direct in that situation actually makes sense. Whereas, you know, when someone is learning something, then sometimes the coach approach is more the correct way. So there's no such thing as you should always, but the question is, how consciously are you making choices in the situation? And I think that is the crucial act. And in order to be conscious, you need to be able to, can I just pause, you know, rather than going on, can I just pause for a sec and do a little bit of reflection, like actually what's going on between you and me? Are we debating or are we in a dialogue? And if we are debating, you know, and then I'm trying to convince you and you're trying to convince me with your arguments. And in a good debate, you know, I'm trying to slam you with your arguments, which are not correct. And then I'm going to show my perfect argument. You know, then again, that is like listening to reply. Then I wait in the debate where you have a little bit of silence. And for me, in order to throw in my answers and my arguments. But if I can actually switch that and say, you know what, you have a different perspective. You don't see a 3, but you see a W. Share a little bit more about that. If I'm really interested, sincerely interested, and even if I feel a lot of resistance, even if I still can come from a mental state. So even if I feel like that's not true at all, can I still look for maybe 1 or 2% truth in it? And the beauty is if I start looking, and that's again a mindset, if I start looking for a little bit of truth in your answer and I find it, that is something where we already start connecting. And that is like opening the door to get from a debate into more of a dialogue. And in a dialogue, we really listen to understand. In a dialogue, we really pause, we wait for something to happen. And again, that would be my answer. Being conscious of what's happening, what is the debate level or the dialogue level, what's needed right now, what is my urge? Maybe my urge is to tell and to be a consultant, whereas your need currently is more a sponsor or a coach. Then I need to also be aware that my urge is being a consultant, but as a good leader, I need to observe what is needed in the system, either from the person or from the team. And if I observe what's needed, then I need to be willing to tweak and adapt my style to the needs of the group. I hope that answers the question to you, Raki.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks, Marco.
You're
Hey,
welcome.
Marco, I have a question because you brought in
Sure.
the point of consultant. See,
Yeah.
from us consultants, the expectation is how fast we can create results. And if the client is too desperate, too demanding, and he has this wrong notion that consultants create faster conversions, faster results, how to deal with that situation wherein we know that enrollment and registration with users take some time. I mean, not users, the organization members, employees. What to do in that scenario? How to enroll leadership in the understanding that it takes some time? What to do?
Yeah. So again, it starts already by the starting point. When people hire me as a consultant, it's easy to say, oh, you want me as a consultant. And from my assumption, I start working as a consultant. But the first thing that I always do with my clients, I sit down with them and I design the relationship. I create some sort of team contract with them. So what are your expectations, not only from a functional perspective and the results and an outcome, but also what are your expectations in the way we show up, the way we relate, the way we interact. And this is also where I typically will bring in, sometimes I will come up with different perspectives. How can we be with the different perspectives? And even if you feel some strong resistance from what's important for me in my work, that we can still be in a sort of open dialogue. And by having this sort of ground rules at the starting point of the consulting job, is an anchor that in these kind of moments where it's becoming harder, I can actually just say, like, you know what, let's for now, let's just go back to the ground rules that we created. And can you still be open? And are you willing to listen to where my advice is coming from? And ultimately, of course, if they hire me as a consultant or as an advisor, then I can advise whatever I say, but it's their choice ultimately. So Deepti, I'm not sure I hope this answers also again sense. Your question is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was on mute. Yeah, it makes sense.
Good.
And so I just want to cross verify that in that scenario, sometimes you can actually both the parties decide that it's not working, and so let's part ways.
Of course. And that's also sometimes, you have to say, sorry, it's not working. That's fine. Currently with one of my clients, I just had a conversation with the HR manager yesterday, where I told him, like, I've been here now for nearly 2 years, done some work. And it seems like, because I'm working with the CEO and the CFO, it seems like we're getting to this level where I should actually get out of the relationship and, give the space to someone else, because it's a natural flow. And that's okay. Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Any more questions, insights, perspectives, whatever? I'm just curious for your thoughts as well. Any other things you'd like to share, guys?
All right.
And otherwise, we're going to close down, I think, Aditi.
Yeah. So I think.
Hi, this is Seema here. If I can ask one question.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
I was just thinking through, when you're talking about your relational quotient, and this is really a wonderful concept, because I absolutely believe in what you can gain with such kind of strong connections. And I've seen in my experience, I always felt my life become more easier because of those connections rather than me reinventing the wheel every time. When we're talking about trust and other feelings, I think it's more of a feeling. Yeah, when you're talking from functional to relational aspect, I'm just trying to relate with some of the team members who in the past have literally come and asked how to build it. Some people really find it difficult to come to that connection quotient where they can open up, they can really, have those attributes which can help them to connect with anyone easily. So are you saying that as we are progressing as an organization, this is also something to do with how as leadership team we build this environment, where we should go beyond now IQ and EQ, but how to support our people to have strong CQ? And my second question is how you will help us understand that there are few things which have to do with the feeling, like I like my husband or I love my husband. There is a huge difference between the two
there's
words.
difference. Yeah, got it.
So how you would help us? Like, I know people are interested, they really want to take this path, but what can be the right way to take them to the CQ?
Yeah. So again, if we start with the first also, again, it's so interesting. If you look at CQ, trust, for instance, like I showed you the model from Stephen M.R. Covey, it shows like you have to have the rationality and the functional element as well as the relational side. Also, if you would look at David Meister's work, he also says, of course, there should be the trustworthiness is something about what do you say, but also how do you act, but also how do you create intimacy, and how big is your ego involved. So again, if you want to grow it, you need to grow both. So it's fundamentally, I'm not saying we should all focus on the relational side. I say we need to focus both. And at the same time, we need to understand that if we really grow also the relational side and the emotional side, and we dare to say yes to it, it will have a really big positive impact on either the team, the organization, and therefore also on the business results. Now, again, if you want to work on it, one of the things that I do in my day-to-day business when working with clients, I also have conversations with the top management teams, and they say, you cannot just ask your employees to be vulnerable and not be vulnerable yourself. So in 2 weeks from now, I'm going to have a meeting, and I just had a meeting yesterday with the clients, the COO and the CCO, and they said, so this is the story we want to tell, and I said, it's interesting, it's all functional, but are you also willing to show a little bit more about yourself, and all the questions you have and how you handle the pressure currently in your situation, in your organization? And they looked at me like, oh, and by raising awareness, this is also where they start to act. So it really starts by, if we want to grow there, of course, work with the people all around, but make sure, and this is what I'm aiming always for, I aim to start at the highest level as well, to make them aware. Because what employees typically will do, they say like, nice concept, and they go like, so what are you doing? And if the CEO is counterproductive, then you can try so many things, and in small elements, in small teams, you can still build the CQ, but it's going to be harder. And when the top level actually says yes to it, then you have like a multiplier already. So my first would always say, try to start at the highest level possible. That is like impact. Now, secondly, there's also what you said, between your husband, you love him or you like him. And again, what I believe, and I love the metaphor, again, in life, when we are born, it's so easy. If you look at young children, they play, they are open, they are, at the one hand, they trying to build a castle, then suddenly it's a car, and then they play something else again. Some points they are in tears, and then 1 minute later they are joyful again, and they have a smile on their face. So they are really in touch with their own emotions and everything involved. Yet what happens in life, then your family starts saying, so this is the morale, this is how you should act. You go to school, you get to a grade, and either you have a good grade or a low grade, and then your parents start telling you stuff where this is what I expect from you. Your teachers expect a lot from you, and then we are getting some sort of harness, and this is where we, in a way, move away from our own emotions. So what I'm basically saying here is also, when we talk about CQ, is actually reconnecting to something that is already in our bodies, that is already in our human, and it's part of our birthright. But through society, we shied away from it. So again, what's most important, since I don't feel like I can change the whole world, what I truly believe in, and also on my spiritual path, my life purpose is I'm the Shambhala warrior, creating world peace. So again, that's part of my spiritual journey. So I'm not in the game of, being the next Gandhi. I'm not. But what I do believe is, by being here together with you guys, I can influence, I can create a little bit of a ripple effect. And at work as well, each and every one of us, we can create a ripple just by being open and honest. And it's sometimes really simple. Sometimes it's just smiling. And not only to your manager, but also to the person who's holding the door. You don't have functional relationship to this person. He or she will never influence your salary at all. But if you still have a act of kindness to them, to the people who are actually not relational at all, I think this is where we start making the difference. So in essence, again, it's like just observe your own behavior, how you show up to other people, and that creates a different world and also a different workplace. So Seema, I hope I answered your questions.
Absolutely agree. And during this time when mental strength and your connectedness with your family, friends has become so important, I'm really thankful for having this topic today. It makes a huge difference. It's giving us, again, an introspection. Are we doing it consciously? Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Seema.
Thanks. Bye.
So hi, Marco. This is Niraj again.
Yes,
Very
Niraj.
briefly. All right.
Good.
So again, amazing session. Like I
Yeah.
said, a very good perspective on connections. But there is something known as COIC, C-O-I-K. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a COIC fallacy. It's called clear only if known. Okay. What it means is that
I'm going to learn something.
most of the time, okay, it's actually a fallacy, COIC fallacy. It's C-O-I-K, clear only if known. What it translates to is that when people speak to other people, they assume that the other person will understand them, what they're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a very common thing. It happens more frequently than you would think, because if I'm saying something to you, I'm assuming that my thoughts will translate to your brain exactly the way it is, which is actually doesn't happen. And I think that plays a major impact on this connection quotient as well, because it impacts that. Like I said, there's an acronym for this, COIK, just for that reason, because it mostly happens when people are talking to each other and they assume what I'm saying, you will understand automatically, because that's I'm envisioning it in my brain, and it doesn't translate it, one-to-one. So I think that definitely has the impact on connection.
So what you're saying here, to each word, we connect meaning and emotion.
Yeah.
So when I say respect, for me, respect has a meaning, a functional perspective, as well as an emotional, the interpersonal and the personal perspective. So that's what you're saying as well. And therefore, again, this is why I keep saying, don't just think indeed that what I say to you, that you have the same, or what I should say, clear only if known. But therefore, I should raise questions. And this is also why people say we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we should listen twice as much than to what we speak. Yet what I notice is that many people have sometimes 2 mouths and maybe 1 ear or just half an ear. So therefore, again, I like what you're bringing in, but it shows again the importance of raising questions and the willingness to listen to the answer, and the willingness trying to understand rather than trying to fix or to tell.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Niraj.
Yeah.
I can't hear you, DT. You're still on mute.
Oh, I'm saying,
there you go.
With that, I think we should call it a wrap. It was such an amazing, believe me, I was very much at peace. I had no rush to close it, and I wasn't bothered, about if someone wants to leave, because, law of 2C. So thanks a lot, Marco. I mean, yes, it was truly engaging. It was truly insightful. And we connected to something that we all have. It's just that we got so busy to realize that. So thanks a lot. Yeah.
You're welcome. It's been my privilege, been my pleasure.
Thank you. So
Thank
you have
you.
a good day and a good weekend. And to all of you who attended, thanks a lot. And the recording as well as the material which Marco would want to share will reach to you in 2 days' time. We'll convert it and we'll share it.
Fantastic. I'll send you the slides directly after when we close down, Deepti. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.